สูงได้ยิ่งกว่าอะไรในจักรวาล
อีดอก
Somebody go ahead and open that. You are elected. Can I have a glass, please? Oh, please. Check on this. Let's have something to think about. Where's a sink?
or you can
It's okay. It's fine. All right. Good afternoon. My name's Kelly, and we're going to do a little Riesling tasting. All right. Riesling being the grape. All the wines that we will taste are either Austrian, French, or German. The Rieslings will be predominantly German. Riesling grape, of the four really great grapes, the greatest grapes in the world being Riesling, Chardonnay for white grapes, Pinot Noir, and Cabernet for red grapes. They truly make the finest wines in the world. And they're planted, again, all over the world. It'd be like if somebody had the finest sugar cane. Obviously, sugar cane gets planted and replanted all over the world where people can go. Anyway, so Riesling is what we're going to predominantly be tasting today, is was planted primarily originally in Germany. And it goes back to the Roman times. So thousands of years it's been grown in Germany and throughout Germany. In the various areas in Germany, it has different flavors. So this is obviously not Riesling. It is in fact a rosé sparkling wine called Blanquette de Limoux, which is a growing district in France in an area called the Languedoc, which is quite a large area. Go ahead and pour it out. Go ahead, pour. Go ahead.
Lemon.
Limoux, right. Blanquette de Limoux. It is a blend of Pinot Noir. Is that the Brut or the? Is that the
It's
Brut?
the brut, yeah.
Or the? It should have been the Rosé.
Brut rosé.
Does it say Brut Rosé on it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, well it's a pale rosé. It's very pale. It's Chenin Blanc and Pinot Noir. Some rosés are paler than others, and this is quite pale. It's rosé, right? So it's a blend of Chenin Blanc and Pinot Noir. So that's you have that. So the rosé is very pale, white roses. Anyway, so we'll go with that. Okay. The first. The first Riesling we're going to have, and I'm sure you guys have to get going at 5 o'clock, so if I speak too fast, say, slow down. Because I know that English is not all your first language, and I speak fast. Even for an American.
No, I'm recording your voice.
Okay.
That's fine. Closer.
All right, so the first Riesling, we're going to have to sort of open out here and pass it down. This is from a very, very small winery in Austria. And the growing area in Austria is called the Wachau, which is it's a district right on the Danube River that goes through Austria, right in through Vienna and so forth. Riesling had been grown also in Austria for a very, very long time. Austria probably might be best known today for their Gruner Veltliners, which is another grape. But that didn't come into fashion until fairly current generation. But Riesling are really the greatest grape grown in Austria as in Germany. This is dry. So I want to give you a very good example of a good dry, couple dry Rieslings. The style of Rieslings can go from a very dry wine to very, very sweet, to almost, very dessert sweet wines. I'll try to look at some examples of that. But Riesling, by its nature, is again very crisp, and you can have a lot of different fruit aromas. Fruit being, well, grapes are fruit, so but it's hard to explain. It could be taste like something. It could say taste like passion fruit, or it could taste like mangoes, or smell. To describe the flavor of taste in English, I'll say in English, there are 4 words that really describe the sensation of taste on the tongue: sweet, sour, salt, bitter. Those are really the only 4 English words that specifically describe taste. Everything else would be it tastes like. So it's sort of a description of sort of a metaphorical description. It tastes like something. It smells like something. But the only words that really describe the sensation of taste itself: sweet, sour, salt, bitter. So, there we go. That is a good example of a good, dry, crisp Riesling. Okay, from Austria.
Nice farmhouse.
This you can throw away. The next wine we're going to have is a Riesling from the area, it's in France, called Alsace. Alsace is right over the border from Germany, and over the years, politically, it's gone back and forth between France and Germany because of various wars. It'd be like parts of Laos or Cambodia going back and forth between Thailand or Siam and back and forth. I mean, the Thai weren't too happy when they settled with the French and kind of gave up parts of what is now Cambodia. That's old history. Anyway, so this is from Alsace. In Alsace, there are vineyards that are called Grand Cru, which would be the very best named vineyard. This is one that's called Frank Steen. Frank, or they would say Frank Steen. It is a series of undulating hills. So the southwestern exposure side of those hills are the Grand Cru. The other side of the hill, there are some vineyards, are not. The lower part of the hill are also not. You follow me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a Riesling from one single vineyard, produced by a very, very small winery called Becker Hartwig. Beck Hartwig. And Florian Beck Hartwig is probably about your guys' age, in his mid-20s, early 30s maybe. I don't know if he's 30 yet. But his wines are primarily, they're all farmed 100% organically, biodynamically, so forth and so on. So is the first wine, which is pronounced Boral. There's sort of a rolling R in Boral, which is almost impossible to pronounce in English. It's a sound that doesn't exist in English. Sort of a rolling R. Like in a lot of Thai words, there's just no equivalent sound in English. So it's all new. So this is, again, richer, dry. These are both, again, drier Riesling, but a little more body. Alsatian Rieslings, because of the temperature and the warmth, they have a little more glycerol content, but glycerol really translates to almost fat. It's not fat, but anyway. So, but there's a little more weight to the wine. It'd be like water and soup. Something with just a little more weight to it, if that makes any sense.
Curry.
Huh?
Curry. No?
Right. So that's, I mean, so you start to get the idea that Riesling can be many, many, many things. You know, depending on where the grapes are grown, how the wine is fermented, so forth and so on. So there's that. Now, are you all from different parts of Thailand?
Yes.
Where?
Well, some from the south, some from the
No.
capital, Bangkok.
Yeah, I
Or-
think all the
I'm from the north.
From Isan.
Northeast.
Karat?
Correct.
Ubon.
Further north?
Further
Close
east.
to north, but
Further east.
not real.
Further east, closer to
Northeast.
Laos?
Yeah, Laos, Cambodia.
A friend of mine lives in Karat. And I cannot pronounce the name of this city.
Korat, Nakhon Ratchasima.
Yeah, of course I know. Yes, she lived. We were just in down in Krabi.
I live in Pak Chong.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know where it is on the map.
It's
I'm
the
gonna-
door of northeast.
Right.
before
That's
Gateway.
almost. That's just on the
Yeah.
on the Mekong River.
Before
isn't
Korat. Not close to Mekong.
it? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I recently stayed. I was in Vientiane and took a. We went to something. We were right by that bridge that goes over into Laos. Everybody's going across to get their passport stamped, going back.
Yeah.
the visa bridge. Anyway, let's see, what's the one we have? Okay, so the next one we're going to have is, this is a German wine that I have a sample of. I thought I'd bring you. This is from August Esser. Essa. It is in the Rheingau. Again, you'll start to notice that a lot of wines are from vineyards that are very close to rivers. There's a reason being for that, along the river banks, up in the hillsides, because going way back, especially going back to Roman times, and they literally, the highways of Europe and the world were rivers. I mean, if you look at old, history of Bangkok, it was all canals. Bangkok was just how people got around, were all through the canals. So, also, in Europe, there were laws where you could not grow grapes, where you could grow wheat, meaning you had to grow food first. So therefore, a lot of vineyards were planted on hillsides that would not be suitable for growing food crops. Follow me there? So it's like if the king of Sinai, said, no, you can't plant the rice, you can't plant the other stuff where you can plant rice. Rice comes first. So similarly, you had to have the vineyards, a lot of the grape vineyards were on the hillsides. So you see that a lot terraced, especially in Germany. So that wine is from a small winery in the area called the Rheingau. Rheingaus, as you'll see when we get to some other wines, have fairly rich flavor, but this is what's called Trocken. Trocken in German, it translates in English to dry. So what they've done by dry is they've taken and fermented all the sugar out of the wine to alcohol, so there's no more sugar left. You follow me with that? Because sugar is alcohol, or it's not. So you ferment it out, or you stop the fermentation and you can leave some sugar in, and you'll see some examples here. But they're not like pouring sugar in the wine. It's just stopping the fermentation, and so the residual sugar stays and leaves some sweetness. And we give it also more body and weight, which you'll see some examples here. But that's quite a nice wine. It's a little oxidized too, so these are examples. These are not necessarily, and this one was Coravant. You've seen those guys use those. So it's a little aged, but you get the idea what happens. Okay. So, are you all wait staff here?
Yeah.
Goody. Anybody from Chicken High? No.
I'm close to it.
Close.
An hour from it. Away from it.
Close-ish. I like you. Okay, we're back to Germany. Now this is another dry Riesling. It's from a winery called Odenstahl in the area called the Rhine, it's called the Pfalz. Rhine Pfalz. And this vineyard's up approximately 350 meters above sea level, so it's quite elevated. But it's again completely organic, completely biodynamically produced, and it's a dry wine. So, but it's got a little more weight. So you have that as an example there. So help yourselves. And this wine is probably on. They had wines on Noma in Copenhagen. So he's got a very big presence in Europe, this particular winery, but it's not well known here. I deal with it with one of the people I work with and brought it in. So in Germany, it's on 25, 30 different restaurants. They're all Michelin stars. I mean, it's like a super rock star there, but it's not as well known here. Don't be shy, help yourself, there's lots. Again, here you'll feel the sort of a little bit more weight to the wine, but even though it's still dry, so it's a little richer, fairly rich in style. There's lots of flavor. Some wines just have a bigger impact of flavor. Again, it's still, all these are still the same grape. Is that okay? You're thrilled.
That's right.
It's okay. You can have opinions if you like. If you like something or don't like something, say so. This is here to share the experience.
Chop máy. Chop máy. Mhm.
What?
I'm asking if they like it.
Huh?
I'm asking if they like it.
And the answer was? She didn't have it yet. I don't know. I don't have it yet.
It's similar to this too, but I feel like this one is more flavorful.
The last one.
Yeah.
It's. We're starting to get it. This is, again, a pretty serious bottle of wine. I mean, they're good. I mean, it's a superb example of Riesling, and it's again, you have to sort of keep in mind that they're all Riesling, but stylized to the winemaker, the place, and it's like you can go around Bangkok and eat the same kind of pad thai from 100 places, and they're going to be different. I mean, I just use that as a silly example, but something that is well-known thing that you could have variations on the recipe 1,000 different ways. Because I was, my friend from Korat, we had a restaurant that we go to often in Bangkok. She says, "This is really great pad thai." I said, "Really? Why?" I said, "Okay, I guess you know." She said, "No, it's really good." Okay. All right. Now, back to an area called the Mittelrhein, which is on the Rhine River again. This is from a winery called Dr. Kauer. Dr. Kauer happens to be, he heads the organic viticulture department at University of Geisenheim in Germany. University of Geisenheim is the top grape growing school in Germany. So he teaches organic viticulture, so people want to know about organic and this and that, he's the guy. So all of his vineyards are organic and biodynamically produced. Biodynamic is kind of really a whole process of working with your soil, if you will, dirt. And that can apply to grape growing or many, many agricultural products. It's just an approach to renewable, sustainable agriculture. Doing the smart thing, taking care of the land. Don't poison the dirt. Don't poison your food. I mean, don't poison the stuff you're going to grow your food in. So this is I believe this is Halbtrocken. Halbtrocken basically translates to half dry. So it's we're starting to go from a little bit of residual sugar in the wine. So a little bit of sweetness in this. I believe it's a Halbtrocken. Does it say Halbtrocken on it?
Where is it?
You see the label there. Oh, Feinherb, same thing. Feinherb, Halbtrocken, same thing. It's a little confusing, meaning it's not completely dry.
But is it in between?
And there's a big variation about that. So I'll explain that when we get to our next wines. It's in between. It's not bone dry, and it's not what the Germans would call fruity. There's literally a German word that translates to fruity. Now, as an American wine merchant, I would never very often try to sell a wine by saying it's fruity. It just doesn't sound very good. People, fruity. I don't want fruity wine. You know, so even if they taste it, go, this is delicious. You know. So that comes from an area, as I said, called the Mittelrhein. And to explain the label, it says Wolfer on there, or excuse me, Bacher Rocker. It comes, the village it comes from is the village or the vineyards in the town of Bacher Rock. Like if you were from New York, you might say you're a New Yorker. If you're from Bacher Rock, you're a Bacher Rocker. Anyway, so then the next thing on there, I forget if it's Wolf Hole. That is the actual vineyard. So this wine comes from one specific vineyard that is recognized on a map and within Germany. You can have an atlas and go all the vineyards, and there it is. So that comes from one specific vineyard in an area called the Mittelrhein on the Rhine River in Germany. And it's 100% organic. Well, it couldn't be organic if it was 99% organic, would it?
Wow.
It's 50% organic. The rest of it. Okay. So you see you're having different variations of age of the wines. The last wine was a 2011. But with these guys, they don't age, but very, very slowly. So the next wine here is from the area called the Saar. And they often refer to the Mosel Saar Ruwer.
Sean.
But because the Saar and the Ruwer are tributaries, little tributaries rivers off the Mosel. The Mosel comes off of the Rhine in Germany. Up that way, actually goes that way. Anyway, so this is a wine from an area called the Saar. The small winery, Dr.
Today, if you show up
Wagner,
early, we still have a table.
the Germans would pronounce it Wagner. And the vineyard is Ackweiner Bachstein, meaning that it's the vineyard of Bachstein in this very small little town of Ackweiner. So it's Ackweiner Bachstein. So it actually goes with one single vineyard of Bachstein, which is considered one of the finest vineyards in Germany.
Wow.
And this particular wine is all fermented in oak barrels, all aged in oak barrels. They use no stainless steel. Most of these other people do, but in this particular case, none whatsoever. So it's a very old winery that dates back to the 1880s. So and that is a Cabernet. So Cabernets have a bit of residual sugar, so they're not bone dry. So there's starting to be a little bit of sweetness to them, a little bit, as the Germans say, fruity. I don't use that expression, but they literally say fruity.
What would you say when the wine is delicious?
Delicious? I would say it's delicious.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. What's delicious in Thai?
Sap.
Huh?
Sap.
Yeah. There's too many accents up and down in Thai that I can't do. My friend just goes so bad. Not this. This is too.
Huh?
I like this one. It's like sweet.
It's very light. Now the thing about the wines from various areas in Germany, the temperature and the climates are quite different. So you're going to have varying degrees of, as you say, lightness. The little cooler wines, and it's
When the close 50, but quite different temperature. When the close 50, quite a different temperature.
sometimes it can be, depending on the exposure. I mean, it can vary. I hate to throw all these sort of variations in, but in honesty, yeah, it can vary a lot from 1,000 meters from one place to another, because there are some vineyards that'll be on a hillside that'll have a perfect exposure here to sunlight, and just as a hill wraps around a little bit, it just doesn't have the same exposure. And if you were to grow, again, anybody that grows an agricultural crop can tell within their field or orchards or whatever that certain spots just get more sunlight or better exposure than other ones. So that there's always slight variations even in a small vineyard, especially if it's a hillside vineyard, because the sun can go around just the way the hills are turned. In this case, the sun can have one spot on the hillside that gets sun 8 hours a day, and just a little bit wrapped around only gets sun 6 hours a day. Or certain times of the day, maybe it gets more of a morning sunlight where the sun is cooler. In the middle of the day, it's just more direct. It's just so there's always thousands of variables, really, to be honest. But people don't like to have massive variations, and then you're collecting all the grapes from the whole vineyard, so you end up with a kind of homogenized total, if you understand what I'm saying about that. So this wine from the Czar, the wines are light. So they're light and sort of delicate, and they have a very crisp acidity. So often people will say that Riesling goes great with Asian cuisine, Thai cuisine. It's not so much the grape, it's the acid structures that really work well with Asian cuisine or any highly spiced cuisine. And also the aromatics, it helps lift the aromatics of a wine. Because if you got a wine that's really big and rich like Chardonnay, it's kind of like just too heavy for Asian cuisine, because they just don't have the acid structures. That's why Rieslings work almost perfectly. Not because they're sweet, that's sort of the assumption that a lot of people make, but it's because of the acid structure that makes them much more clean with Asian cuisine, and especially highly spiced or hot cuisine. Not so much, some cuisine can be very, spices that we just don't have in the United States don't exist. You can't even get your hands on it. I mean, even Thai cuisine, I was talking about Angus, it's very hard to get certain things. Because whenever I go to Thailand, I go to the markets and I see all things you can't get, especially fresh. All right.
I think this one is the most suitable with Thai food.
Pardon?
This one.
So far, I think, yeah.
Yeah, compared with the previous one. All the
หวานมากนิดนึงชิมไหมตัวนี้การ์ตูนน่าจะชอบ มัสคาโต้เลยค่ะ
But very often people buy what they want to drink. They think it will go well, and I can talk myself crazy and it doesn't mean anything. Because everybody thinks they know better than I. I've only been doing this for 45 years. What do I know? Anyway, here's the next wine. This is also a Cabernet. This comes from an area called it's in the area of the Middle Mosel. Here you go, gentlemen. And it comes from the town of Peasport, therefore it's a Peas Porter. Goldtropschen is the vineyard. It's a it's a very famous vineyard. It's a very, very fine vineyard. So again, this comes from one single vineyard. Now there might be a couple of dozen people that actually own parcels of vineyard within the Goldtropschen vineyard.
Wow.
So you might see it on quite a few different people that make it. It's not just one, many. Like if you think of a vineyard would be the size of the San Francisco Panhandle, there might be 20 people on the parcels of that vineyard. And this is a Cabernet again, but Goldtropschen is very, very famous vineyard. When I was first in the wine business and learning about wine, if restaurants had German wines on the wine list, you could almost guarantee it would be Peasport or Goldtropschen. Like that one. So this again is a Cabernet, but it's a little richer in style than the wine from the Tsar. But it's got very good acid structure, so it comes, even though it has a lot of fruit flavor on the palate, it cleans up because of a good crisp, good acid structure. It's, again, wines from this area, which is called the Middle Mosel, will never have the acid structures of wines from the Czar. They do, but again, you're talking shades of gray.
Slightly different.
Slightly different, but they're different. That's why I'm showing you. These are all Riesling, all the same grapes, so they're quite a bit different. But again, they're from predominantly Germany. In California, there's some of these types of Riesling are very hard to duplicate, certainly in the New World, certainly in California. It's just too warm to get the balance of the acid structure. So it's virtually impossible to achieve this in California. I'll say virtually impossible so I don't make an absolute statement, but in honesty, it's impossible. Can't do it, but well, let's not go to absolutes. It's impossible. because the same soil types, the same everything, you can't, it's just not duplicatable. And it's just, no matter what kind of ability and talent you have, and no matter how you care for a vineyard, to duplicate or replicate the same conditions in Germany or certain places, you can't do it. That's why Thai rice is the best rice.
Cannot duplicate it.
You original. You cannot be.
Well,
replaced.
ใหม่ดิอะไรนะคำไหนนะ
Thailand made a lot of money selling rice to the Chinese because it was the best rice in the world.
คำของมึงอ่ะ
Did they make rice in China? Of course they did.
Yeah.
You can't read me
Who bought the
Nice.
best rice? The royalties in China. They bought the best stuff and where it come from.
เอาดิ
Jasmine rice from Taiwan.
สิ
Siam. Okay. The next wine I'm going to give you is also, it's a Spätlese. So this is a little bit sweeter now.
มึงตื่นเลยนะพอหวานเนี่ย
So
เฮ้ยอันนี้ก็
the,
อร่อย
ตื่นกันเลยนะแต่ละคน
legally speaking, when in the German categories of Cabernet, Spätlese, we'll have an Auslese and so forth, our degrees or how much sugar will be in a wine. It's measured by must weight, how much sugar is in the wine. And those overlap a little bit. So the very high end of allowable sugar content in a Cabernet can also be the low end of sugar content in a Spätlese. So they can tend to overlap sometimes. So sometimes somebody could call, and then we'll get to an Auslese, they might want to call not an extremely sweet Auslese a Spätlese because it's easier to sell, just for commercial purposes. So this wine comes from a vineyard called Erzig or Würzgarten. Erzig is the village. Again, it's in the area called the Middle Mosel. Würzgarten or Spice Garden is what it translates to. Spice Garden is again a fairly large vineyard in Germany, in the town of Erzig. So it's Erzig. Remember that when you see the part, ER part. So this is a Spätlese. So it has a little more sweetness to it than the Cabernet, but it's not a good acid structure. And this is also a 2015, which was an extremely successful, just a great vintage for super high quality wines. So again, it's the same, you're getting a little sweeter, more or less the same area, a couple, 20 kilometers apart, but you see, quite a bit of differences. Okay, next wine is the same wine from the same vineyard, same wine producer, Karl Erbes, very small producer. This is also a Spätlese, but this was a 2008.
2008
So it's the same wine, 7 years older. So it's a little softer in texture. In 2008, it wasn't a really high acid vintage. And again, some vintages are higher acid structure than others. Again, vintage to vintage can change quite a bit. These are some wines that I had imported through some.
not anymore
So again, we're still. What? I don't like the looking. Fine. It has a little bit of a lemon
อันนี้
aroma
คือ
to
ที่
it.
ว่าจะเอาใส่ในเมนู
Spice.
ทุกตัวอะไรป่ะหรือว่า
So it had softened up a little bit, so it won't have the acid structure of the previous wine. So it might seem a little dull, but it's soft. So that might go, I don't know, there's a great restaurant in Bangkok that I like. It's on Soi One off of Sukhumvit.
Sukhumvit Soy 1.
Anyway. I never remember the name. Na Arun.
Na Arun.
Huh?
Na Arun.
You know it?
No.
Anyway, it's an exceptionally good restaurant. What does that mean?
That's a name?
Na Arun. Yeah.
Not.
But what's the really big, is it Sukhumvit, the street in Bangkok?
Yeah.
It's literally on at the end of Soi One. And it's come right up to the end of the Soi, and there's a canal there. It's still a functioning canal. Then I was walking down the street because I was staying nearby, and I saw what looked like an old house, and it might be a little hotel and a restaurant, and it was. And it happened to be a vegetarian restaurant. The woman that owns it, her husband's English, she's Thai. Her grandfather built the house in the 40s, and he had been the head of engineering department at the University of Thailand, or University of Bangkok. But the food was absolutely exquisite. All right, so here is a Auslese. Now, this is basically from the same vineyard as the previous two wines, except it comes from one specific parcel of grapes in that vineyard called Inderkranklei. What it is, if you look straight at the vineyard, you don't notice it, but from an angle, you'll see that there's this terrace that's sort of into the hillside that's sort of like a ledge. And on that ledge, there is one parcel of vineyard, which is that particular vineyard. And then from that ledge, there's almost a cliff up, and then the hillside starts again. So the Urziger Würzgard is a sort of a big round, it's all hillside vineyards, and they have to have steps. It's very extremely steep. So this is a Auslese 2015. So it's again Urziger Würzgarten under Kranklei. So it comes from one small parcel, so it's a perfect example of what I was explaining to you. And then there's other little parcels of vineyards that are like that. So this is an Auslese, so this is definitely getting to the point of somewhat sweet. Not somewhat sweet, it's sweet. It's sweet, yes.
Nampun kerajaan.
Hot มากเลยฮะ
ติดกัน3 ตัว
Spicy crazy wine, tasting Kim sound like
ตัวนี้อร่อย
style wine.
Say that again?
Was there any spicy crazy wine? Riesling Kim sound like this shape of wine.
Traditional.
Traditional?
No other reason. It's just traditional. There's no practical function, if that's what you're saying. There's no utilitarian reason for it. It's just tradition. There's some bottles in a particular area of Germany. They're round, and they call them Boxbottle, from an area called Franconia. It's just tradition. They're a pain in the neck because retailers can't put them on their shelves. You got to stand them up. But it's simply tradition. I'm sure that the tradition started for some reason, but these people, again, they've been making wine in these vineyards since the Roman times, since 2,000 years. They found old Roman ruins and ships in some of these old vineyards and vineyard sites and hillsides, so they've been making wine for 2,000 years in some of these places. Long time. It's a very, very old wine. So, I don't know. Now, there's one thing that's kind of traditional in wines, though it's a little different. There used to be where wines from the Rhine would be in brown glass, kind of like this, though this is a Mosel, and wines from the Mosel would be in green glass. And that was a very traditional thing, but that's kind of gone away. But it used to be very traditional. You'd see brown glass. You could always say, that's a Rheingau. That's from the Rhine. Green glass, that's a Mosel, but that's changed too. but you still see it some. That's it. So there you have Riesling, all kinds of Riesling.
All over Germany.
Now, it's, and this is just a touch. I mean, there's along the Rheingau where this wine was from. I mean, again, there's hundreds and hundreds of wineries. I have a book that's 600 pages worth of wines. I mean, it's what we see in the United States is the tip of the iceberg of what it produces in Germany. There's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of wineries. And Riesling is grown in California, Oregon, Washington State. Upstate New York makes some very nice Rieslings. An area they call the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. In some areas in Australia, they can grow some very, very nice Rieslings as they can in New Zealand. So, but they're never this good. Here you go. Thank you much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. So are we saving these bottles here?
Yeah, enjoy your wines.
Oh.
Have fun.
All right. Thank you, Kelly.
Tell Ing I'll take her up on dinner another day.
Well, don't you want to stay?
Huh?